decided to do a sweep of the neighborhood, and they detained my 50-year-old neighbor who'd been living in Humboldt Park for his entire life. He's a Puerto Rican citizen of the United States, and he was detained. He was denied his medicine. He arrived home with groceries in his car, so like ice cream was melting in his back seat, and they detained him, and they denied him medicine. They didn't give him due process. He was held, I think, overnight, and the day after that, he suffered a massive stroke from the stress, and he has never recovered from that. And I think it's one thing when it's a citizen who is doing kind of casual negligence on behalf of their own life and creating a tragedy that, you know, sends a ripple effect, but it is a completely different thing when people who are supposed to be employed by our city are then like multiplying the amount of violence that is happening in response to what was ultimately a really tragic accident. And his whole family has like had to have like care for him, and it has like completely hit their whole like family and life. And thank you. I feel very strongly that I'll wrap up, but I feel very strongly that the amount of police on the streets for the Puerto Rican Pride Festival seems massively inappropriate, and I would like to very much be understanding what the cost-benefit analysis that was being run to spend what is clearly at least over $1 million on having that amount of police presence, and what problem are they solving exactly, and what cost is that? Like, I don't think that it makes fiscal sense, so that's why I'm here.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comment? Ms. Heyman?
Yeah, it looks like we've got a new commissioner, a new commander in the 14th district. So I would really like to have a meeting with this person and see if we can get some questions answered that the previous commander, Commander Linus, could not answer in our March meeting. In particular, we asked for a racial breakdown of the 14th district traffic stops. And she could not provide that answer, or would not, don't know which. I'd like an update on Lieutenant Nowacki, who's an oath keeper, and who we've been asking to have removed from the 14th district for over a year now. And she kept saying, well, I have no control of who works in the 14th district. I don't know what to do. She said at one point he was going to retire, but I keep checking the retirement lists, and he's not on it. So, and he's a lieutenant in command of other people and an oath keeper. Also, 911 response times and the workforce allocation. She could not provide us any information on those details. Said it was, she's not a data person. But we told her in advance that we wanted to get answers on that, and she still didn't come with anything. 911. Oh, I'm sorry. Sexual assaults. I mean, we had at that point in the March meeting, we had 3 known sexual assaults in the 14th district, and 3 days before we held the March meeting, there was a 4th, which she didn't even tell us about in the meeting. So, I mean, I'm very concerned about the fact that she doesn't know anything. She can't answer any questions. I'm hoping our new commander can do a little better, but I would like to start asking those questions as soon as possible, so that hopefully we can get some answers to these very important questions for our district. Also, oh, never mind.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other public comments?
I would just like to, do you have my name? Laura Rosenbauer. I'd just like to echo kind of both of the sentiments of the public comments. I live really close to Humboldt Park, and I agree that the police presence seemed absolutely excessive for the event, and like we could hear helicopters flying over like really late at night. So that just seemed, incredibly excessive. And then also echoing the request to have the commander come to one of our meetings as soon as possible, just so that we can meet him and again raise those really important questions.
Thank you for your comments. Anything else? Any other public comments from everyone? Seeing nothing, we will go ahead and close out public comment. And we will move on into, we do you have a copy of the minutes, the meeting minutes that we're to vote on? Because I do not.
No, I do not.
Okay, so we'll have to defer the March, April, both April dates, May and June, this meeting to July. So we got quite a bit to catch up on. So therefore, that being said that we do not have minutes to review, we will have to request a copy of those in advance so that we can get them ready for speedy approval at our next meeting in July.
Could you repeat the dates for the minutes we're looking at?
April
Oh,
4, March 4, April 5, April 9, and May meeting
Appreciate it.
from the 17th, which is up top.
Great.
All right. So we will move on into our district council member updates. We'll hear from our community outreach.
Yeah, thank you. We had we had our second self-defense class or work that was paid for from part of our budget from your tax dollars. The first one was in Pulaski Park on May 10th, and the second one was on June 2nd at the Grace Church of Logan Square, where we had our last meeting. And that's a class that is ongoing every other Monday evening at 7 p.m. And we sponsored one of those classes to be totally free and open to the public and people who signed up. It seemed to be extremely well received. I was able to attend that one. There were about over 15 people taking the class, which is around the capacity, the ideal capacity. So I think that was successful. It is, I believe intend to try to organize another one, but I'm not 100% sure on the details of that yet. So, if anybody would like to discuss that, I'm all ears. One other thing I'll mention, I'm wearing a t-shirt I purchased from the partner of deceased Timothy Glaze, and she told me that she really does not feel safe knowing that the two officers, Saleh and Alejandro Urbano Mateo, that shot her partner to death, are back on patrol. And I think this is part of the troubling trend that a number of police officers who have killed people in our city are on patrol, including those that killed Dexter Reed, and more recently, just west of us, Nathaniel Farajang was also killed in the last month. And yeah, I think done with updates.
All right. Thank you for that. Quick couple of items for me. Our nominating committee chairperson isn't here, but a couple of things that I wanted to make note of. 2 weeks ago, we had a quarterly meeting where all 22 districts sent representatives or were fully invested, such as the 14th district. I can proudly say that we were all in attendance there. While we were there, this is where we start to get proposals, and they build their momentum from there. And these are the proposals that we bring up to the commission level for them to review and implement into their strategies. And for example, the GO 111, which is the police interaction with these meetings, that started off as a proposal. A couple of the ones, the two that were presented at the quarterly meeting, and I wanted to share these with each of you, because I believe in complete transparency, and I don't want anybody to think that we're working in the shadows here. One of which was developing youth councils to kind of partner with us. I thought that was very interesting. I'd like to see how it fleshes out. I think getting youth involved in here kind of hits some of the tenets of the consent decree, where they have a youth outreach and participation. Plus, I think it's a good idea to get youth involved in these things so they can get sort of a civics lesson, if you will. Plus, they can sit there and kind of create their destiny. I really am a big fan of that proposal. So that's one of the items, and I've got, I can share copies of the drafts. I won't say that these will be doctrinated. They'll probably be polished up as time goes on and we get to vote on them at the end of the year. But another one which our colleague, Councilor Vargas, worked on with Councilor Quintero, who was at our meeting last month. They came up with a proposal for the Victim Bill of Rights. Basically, and this kind of addresses what was brought up in public comment about the services offered to victims of crimes or of tragic incidents, even, to where, what to do if you're, a victim of a crime. What's the protocol? What can we expect from the police? This is actually going to create basically things that they should be following along, and the way some of the wording is, it makes it a requirement, and I think mandate, requirement, and control are dangerous words to use, especially when you're writing legislation. I think it can be polished up and brought up to where we're building a collaborative environment with those that help us, that patrol over us. But, so yes, like I said, I can share drafts with you. All you have to do is just hit my email and I'll shoot back out your way. But yeah, with that, that's all I have for updates.
I remember one short thing. Okay, thank you. Also, the city has put out a large amount of Know Your Rights and immigration resources. There's some on the table if you would like to discuss any of that. I'm happy to discuss that with you. There's also different rapid response groups in different areas of the city that are showing up to verify and mostly dispel reports that may have some people frightened, or if there are certain activities, to try to witness them, document, and see that rights are being upheld. So if that's something you're interested in, I know it's a topic of concern for a number of people. You're welcome to speak with me about it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that being said, we'll go ahead and get into discussions. You have anything on police accountability today?
I'm ready to go to our presenter when you are. I think that they said that they might need to leave after their presentation.
Okay, that's fine.
Awesome.
We can jump straight to that. Do you have anything for any of the other items? So I know.
The only other thing that I was going to potentially do was to let people know about the July 7th deadline and talk through some of this with whatever time we might have. I'm not sure if you have other things on the agenda. Do you have other things?
I don't.
Okay. Then no, that's it. Awesome. So a little introduction. We have a speaker today, Ishan Daya, who is co-lead organizer for the Collaborative of Community Wellness, which has the project Treatment Not Trauma, and more recently, some of the alders in the 14th district, including Jesse Fuentes, I don't remember the full list, were sponsors for what was called the Public Health and Safety Budget Amendment, which was seeking to preserve services and find more efficiencies in the budget rather than to increase taxes or cut services. And that came late in the game last year, but now in advance of the budget cycle, there's a group which is what the Public Health and Safety Campaign is trying to make sure that the budget as it is being formulated includes what has been working, because Chicago is at a 16-year low for homicides, and just as we saw in 2023 and 2024, when the first ward specifically brought in violence prevention into West Town, there was a dramatic, immediate 100% reduction in gun deaths, and 60% reduction in other violent crimes. So we've seen that also citywide now, but with federal cuts, it's going to be difficult to maintain these programs unless we prioritize them correctly in the budget. Okay, so Ishan Daya is here to go through some things with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, for sure. Hey all, I'm Ishan. It's good to meet you, and thank you for having me. I still lived in the 14th district for a minute, so it's good to be back in this space. Thank you for that overview, David. As folks know, even though we've seen evidence that violence has decreased in the city, there's still this felt experience that, how do I know that I feel safe when I am calling someone to get help, right? How do I make sure that if I see someone that is having a challenge on the street, that might be a mental health challenge, that might be a social needs challenge, right? They may need food, they may need water. How do I make sure that I know who to call and that when I call, they're the right person to answer, right? There is this sentiment that that can actually respond to the litany of questions and litany of needs that our communities and our neighbors and our people have. So to frame a little bit of what we're talking about today, and this is also meant to be a discussion, it's like an intimate group of people, so if you have questions, please pop in. I'm not feeling, precious about that at all. I want this to be more of a discussion and how you guys interact with public safety. District earlier, and one of the police, one of the higher up police was saying about how they can't be the people that are answering every call. It doesn't make sense for them to answer every call. CIT training's only 40 hours, and they don't feel comfortable and they don't feel safe in those situations. And what ends up happening oftentimes is the result of police misconduct settlements, right? We don't need to be putting police in these situations. And also we don't need to be putting our neighbors in these situations where they can actually get the help that they need. So we're starting to see some of the actual positive effects of some of these solutions in the toolkit of public safety, like peacekeeping, where we're seeing, Northwestern did a study on peacekeeping in the city, and peacekeeping is the idea of having folks in community that are engaging with people on the street, are building relationships with people on the street, and giving people alternatives to when they see escalation happening. So how do I de-escalate the situation in the moment? But then also, a deeper version of peacekeeping is how do I also understand the dynamics of this neighborhood? How do I understand the dynamics of the people that are on the street and on this block? And how do I even prevent escalation?
Prevent situations from escalating, and also provide some information on where there might be needs for other trained folks to do some interventions to provide services.
Yeah. When we think about ROI, return on investment, so when we think about a fiscal responsibility approach to what does public safety mean, peacekeeping is one of the highest ROI measures that we can have in terms of dollars in and results out. Two of the things that we're fighting for within this campaign, and we'll frame out the campaign a little bit more, one of them is called Treatment Not Trauma. And the idea here is that we want to follow what happened in 1967. When in 1967, pre-1967, there wasn't this thing called EMTs, right? It was a group of Black medical professionals outside Pittsburgh that identified there are too many people that worked so well that it scaled across the country. Right, 1967 is recent history, and that is history that we can see we can continuously evolve the way we think about crisis response, the way we think about engaging with our neighbors. And what we're saying with Treatment Not Trauma is let's take a page out of that book. Let's have peer support specialists that are trained in de-escalation more than 40 hours, trained 1,600 hours. Let's have crisis clinicians that are trained in this and trained in social work to be able to engage with people and say, hey, we actually do this. This is used across the country right now. Right? We're actually a little bit behind in our implementation. Evanston just implemented this as well, and they're actually ahead of us in how well they're implementing it. Right? So we need to catch up, and we need to scale this out. The second part of Treatment Not Trauma is us having public mental health centers across the city. Right? We're fighting to have one public mental health center, at least 2 public mental health centers, one in Pilsen and one in Roseland. And what we saw was that with the creation of more infrastructure, the appointments increased at a run rate of 50%, right? 50%. So now we're at a rate of about 32,000 appointments this year, right? People are starting to get more access to the care that they need, right? So what our goal is, how do we get people long-term access to care? How do we decrease the number of crises that happen in psychosis, what could be seen as psychosis? They took a brick and they threw it at a car window. Somehow the car window didn't break. And the police said, I don't think this is actually for us. I don't think that this is the call for us to take. They called the care team to back up. Care team came, and instead of locking this person up, they gave this person food, they gave this person water, they gave this person we can now get this person longer term care and make sure that they're actually decreasing the cycle of crisis. For Peacebook, what we're talking about here is young people being peacekeepers themselves, right? Giving young people the responsibility and the ability to actually be in their communities and do the peacekeeping, like you were asking about the definition earlier, do the peacekeeping in their communities alongside youth programming, right? University of Chicago put out a study a few years ago saying that the two most effective interventions for youth violence was youth people saying, I want to actually give resources to my community members and talk with them about how we make our streets safer and make sure that our folks are getting the resources that they need. Of those 800 applicants, they only had 100 slots, right? We only had funding for 100 slots. 700 people had to be turned away. We're going to talk a little bit about the juxtaposition of that with funding around police vacancies, a little bit in the core of this campaign. But we know that these solutions work, right? These are proven by data, these are proven by experience, and we see it every day. And this is not a conversation on whether you are a progressive or you're a conservative or you're a libertarian or if you're whatever it may be. This is about how do we make the most, starting to spread out how we think about public safety and caring for our people. So all this is happening, right? We're seeing really good effects of these interventions across the city. And federally, we're seeing an absolute destruction of what our public health infrastructure looks like and what some of these interventions actually look like. I just got an email 3 hours ago saying that IDHS, the Illinois Department of Health Services, was announcing that Trump had just cut funding for queer youth's suicide prevention, infrastructure breaking. And we see that in the cutting of funding for HIV studies. We see that in the cutting of funding for overdose prevention, things like Narcan being available for our people. Narcan has been one of the most effective interventions across this country. We see new measles cases coming into our area. We just saw that. I want to give like a quick view. I realize this might be a little bit tough to see, but there's 3 columns here. One column is CDPH, the Chicago Department of Public Health. One column is DFSS, Department of Family and Safety and Support Services. And then one column is CPD, Chicago Police Department. Right? The city is projecting a $1.2 billion deficit. If folks want to get into how did we get to this deficit, infrastructure is grant built. DFSS, about 80% is grants. Go ahead.
So those are federal grants, or are those grants like across federal, state,
across.
local?
Majority of CDPH is actually federal grants, though.
Okay.
Yeah. And then DFSS, same thing. CPD is only 10% federally granted, right? About 90% of our daily dollars, our corporate dollars is what it's called, actually go towards CPD. And I'm actually gonna, so $750 million of DFSS is grant funded.
Okay.
And which means that DFSS's budget is corporate budget is about $150 million. CDPH is $598 million grant funded. 85% of it, really 87%, 13% of it is corporate funded. And with that, about $2 billion. Massive difference, and we'll kind of get into what that means. Thanks for the questions too. Makes it more fun for me too. So amidst all of this, there were a variety of campaigns that were in the city, across the west side, the south side, and the north side, around how do we rethink what public health and public safety investment looks like in the city, right? We have tried our streets, fund our services, fund the things that work around public safety, because that's what this is doing. And that's why we have police officers that are in support of this. That's why you have police department and public safety officials that are in support of this, is because they are tired and tired and tired of having every problem get routed to them. Right? So right now we have police officers. This is not exhaustive by any means. We have them being violence prevention. We have them being victim advocates. We have them being case managers. Does it make life challenging for these folks? It makes the quality of care that are coming to our people on the streets abysmal, right? And we cannot continue to do that. Right? So what we are proposing, can I not see that? What we're proposing is to take what is essentially this $300 million police vacancy and overtime slush fund, and have that redirected to public safety interventions on the street, right? We want to see these investments in public safety actually invested on the street with Narcan distribution in the city. We can't see that go away. We need to protect some of these public health interventions. Take 100 million of that and start to actually implement treatment not trauma, these public mental health centers, and the non-police crisis response across the city. You shouldn't have to, right now, non-police crisis response exists across 6 districts from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. So if you're gonna have a mental health crisis, only do it there and only when you're in those 6 districts, right? What we're saying is that everyone knows that changed. That should not be a challenge that our people face. We want $22 million for youth programming, and we want and for youth jobs, right? It should be easier to get a job for a young person than it is to get a gun, right? That is the core of what we are saying. How do we make it easier for people to access the resources and be a part, make sure that we're putting forward a proposal that's actually a solution here. It's a solution saying we can invest in our words, we can invest in public safety, and we can do it by redirecting these unaccountable funds that are currently living within the police department as they think about vacancies and overtime. We'll talk a little bit about what that means. So we talked about this a bit, but I'm going to break down these numbers in a slightly different way. When we think about $100 million for, and I'll say this a little bit more broadly, right? And that includes a non-police crisis response 24/7 everywhere in the city. It's about, when you think about it, about $4 million per ward. Wards already get $1 million of any money, right? We're saying $4 million per ward to invest in having free mental health care access for your people, non-police crisis response for your people. Right? That's what we're asking for. In comparison to right now, it's a $40 million investment, and we think about CPD vacancies. So over time, every year, there's about $100 million that's budgeted for OT. Right? Year over year, it's been $100 million. It started increasing about 6 years ago. We'll get into that graph. The amount that's allocated, but the amount that's actually executed on, the amount that's actually paid out, in 2024 was $215 million. In 2023, it was $285 million, I think, $280 million. Right? More than double, almost triple. And what our argument here, and other police officers' arguments here, is that we can actually decrease the amount of OT that happens by saying you don't need to answer all these calls. And we can decrease the amount of settlements that happen by saying we don't need to put you in these situations anymore, and we can have the right people responding to the right calls at the right time. In 2021, the settlement just happened. There was this woman who was locked out of her apartment. It was about 5 degrees outside, and she called 911 and 311 to get support in getting into her home. Right? It's absolutely freezing outside. She's calling. She's in need of support. No one answers 911. No one answers 311. She has her neighbor call. Neighbor calls 911, no response. She's like, okay, I'm gonna walk to my nearest CPD station. She walks over to the CPD station. There's a police officer. Me solve this problem, and they say no. They roll up. They keep on driving. So she's called for 911. She's talked to someone at 911. She's now walking to the police district. She gets there, doesn't get the help that she needs. One thing leads to another. She ends up finding her way home through other means. Through that process, she gets extreme frostbite on her legs, and parts of both her legs are amputated. That was a $5 million settlement that was just settled on some weeks or a month ago. $5 million. The current budget for non-police crisis response is $4 million. Right? We could have actually implemented a free public mental health center in her district and a non-police crisis response 24/7 in her district for $4 million. Right? And we could have stopped the harm from happening in the first place. Right? How do we stop the harm from happening in the first place? And that's really what this is about. People deserve settlements. People deserve the care that they need and settlements. And we can also reduce these concepts of widespread OT abuse. Right? The OIG, the Office of the Inspector General, issued out a report in 2017 saying that there's 4 reasons why we're seeing widespread OT abuse. And I'm happy to send it over to you guys, and then if you guys want to send it out. And one of the biggest reasons was trolling. 2017 happens, then we get to 2020. 2020, OIG issues out an updated report saying these same issues are still as rampant as they were in 2017. We were hoping this would change. This has not yet changed. There are some changes in how you log OT, but the actual OT abuses are still here. We need to see change, right? That means that they are volunteering for calls that are at or past the end of their shift. That means that they're actively seeking a traffic or disorderly conduct or other violation at the end of their shift. This is one of the reasons why the pretextual traffic stops and making sure that the police don't have to answer or engage with traffic violations or parking violations, right? And then making an arrest at the end of the shift as a result of escalating a situation, which would have been within the officer's discretion, right? This language, by the way, is not from me, not from the campaign. This language is from the report from the Office of the Inspector General, right? So when we think about why is OT so big, it happens that leads to the attrition, and there is OT abuse. So what we're saying is, let's actually decrease the need for all of these things. And let's bring things back into how we can actually get people the care that they need. This is just a graph, because I like graphs, of what overtime appropriation was in the budget versus overtime expenditure in the budget since 2014. You're seeing over $1 billion in the last 10 years of not overtime spend, and that is also where settlements comes from as well, right? So $82 million is budgeted for these settlements. We saw that they're already, I think, at 125 or maybe more than that right now, and we're midway through the year. These funds come from these vacancies. So what are the police vacancies? The police vacancies are roles that are outlined within the budget that they have not hired for yet. Last year there was about 1,300. These vacancies are purported to be able to create space for them to hire. The two things that we would say is, we actually don't need to hire more police officers. We need to take things off of their plate and give that to other folks, right? That's part one. We hear that from the police officers themselves. And then the second thing is CPD has had a negative retention rate for the last many years. Right? Chicago Sun-Times did a big piece on this last year. They are losing people every year and not able to hire people every year. People responding to the right calls at the right time. Let's get young people as being a part of the public safety solutions, because we know that that's one of the most successful interventions, and we can do all of that with the dollars that we have right now. Right, so that's what we're fighting for. And we're, in this campaign. This campaign is rooted with 6 different organizations, but we have more than 160 organizations that are signed on to what we're fighting for. That's across people within the faith community, folks across all the north, south, and west sides, the southeast side. Through October, we're trying to have as many conversations with the deputy mayors, the commissioners of these departments, district counselors. We have a number of district counselors that have already signed on to this demand. Would encourage you guys to push, other district counselors to sign on to this demand as well. We are having as many conversations with alders as possible, and we're trying to really just deepen our base. And then phase 3, October through December, is we want to see this in the budget, right? We don't want to, and if this is exciting to you, and if this is something that you'd want to be a part of, we've got a couple ways for people to get engaged. So one is you can send an email to your alder. It's just click to send. It's bit.ly/shy-budget-action. Oh, and if it's easier, there is, just kidding.
That's actually one of the questions I have. Are you going to share the slide deck with us?
I would love to.
We can share it with our email list?
Yeah, I would love to, for sure. Yeah. The second is text your friends. I'm guilty of this. I was just with my friends earlier today. I was babysitting, and they were running a 5K. And I was like, I haven't actually had my best friends do this thing yet, right? Text your friends, tell them to be a part of this thing. And then we've got the budget roundtables happening on June 28th, June 30th, July 1st. Right? We want this to be a place where we're bringing people in to being a part of the solution. People are coming from a wide variety of political ideologies. People are coming from a wide variety of different backgrounds and lived experiences. But this is a thing that we want people to come together and say, we want to see our streets safer. We want to see the city safer. We want to see our youth invested in. We want to see
Thank you. I just saying thank you first. Yeah, we can probably take a couple questions. Do you have time?
It's right at 2 o'clock, but we got time, there's time remaining anyway. Does anyone have any questions for our speaker, Mr. Giles?
It's good that you were able to ask them during the presentation as well, so that was appreciated, definitely.
I'm trying to sign up for the roundtable. If I sign up for this, will I get an email reminding me about it?
We had a gentleman that represented them, he came and he just attended, didn't give a speech or anything like that.
Yep.
Shared his thoughts in public comment and what, in their mission and everything like that, so. Just to be clear, because I know that this is kind of written citywide,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to make certain our attendees knew that we have that available.
And people voted that in,
Right,
Yeah.
and
right.
are paying
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Right. So, question I have for you, because you mentioned the Peace Book and the 800 applicants and 100
Yeah.
positions. How is that currently funded? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't disagree with you that
Yeah.
CPD and public health should be working hand in glove.
Yeah.
I believe it's all
Absolutely.
one mission for public safety and health.
Yeah. Public health
right
is
on-
public safety.
I'm right on board with
Yeah.
you there. Because, and the budget, the city budget contains a lot of different departments.
Mhm.
I think we can all agree on that. And you're right, some of that money could be used more efficiently in every department. And not
Yeah.
exclusive to CPD.
Yeah, the reason that we focus in, if this is helpful, the reason that we focus in on CPD is because CPD has the largest allocation of unaccounted funds for vacancies than any other department in the city, and also has a multiplied amount of corporate dollars than any other department in the city. So that's part one. Part two of why we focus in on those funds is because we're really talking about public safety dollars, right? When we have dollars going into CPD, our expectation is that those are public safety dollars that are invested in our streets. And that's why you're not seeing this being like, let's replace the lead piping, right? Like that
That's
would,
public health.
yeah, that's public health. That's public health. And
And that kind of leads me into my next question, because I'm trying to square up, because basically you're saying vacancies, and then you're saying overtime. Like they're two different dichotomies, but one is leveraged by the other.
And that's why we think about it as one fund, right? That's why we're saying like, really, we're talking about this like $300 fund across both of them.
Right, so
Yeah.
we'll, just for the sake of brevity, we'll call it $300, because we know it's.
Oh yeah, 300 million, yeah.
But, so, would you, if they had a.
Other forms of intervention that are doing all of these other jobs that we know police officers actively don't want to do, right? We've heard that, I think you've probably heard that from police officers, I've heard that from police officers, right? Right now, we already have the highest per capita spend on policing in the country. And what we've seen is that when we actually invest in these other things, we can look at Boulder, we can look at Eugene, we can look at Atlanta, we can look at a bunch of other cities that are implementing, we can really see that when we think about it as, think about it as a business, if it's ineffective in doing all these other things, let's focus what their role is, have, maybe the same number as we have today, but then use that to actually fund the rest of this.
Okay, maybe I didn't phrase my question properly. Like I said, they kind of pivot on one another, so there's a fulcrum point to where it's like, okay, we need an optimal level.
We always want to strive for workers to not be forced to do overtime. Right? Like I think that is like a baseline. Right now, we know that about 40% of calls that go into CPD are mental health related, right? So if I took 40% of the calls off of CPD, right, we're at $2.2 billion spend. 40% of that is around $550 million. $550 million then should technically actually be able to get removed from that budget, right? And then should actually be able to be spent. Is that 40%? 500? $800 million. $880 million. We should actually technically be able to remove that and have that go towards the plethora of safety solutions that have been proven to work. So if I'm taking like the logic of budgeting math, that's how.
That's kind of an uphill battle as well that I see, and
Yeah.
I laud you for the program and everything like that. But what I've seen in your presentation is that only CPD gets the haircut, no other department does.
So my response to that is last year, the only department that got a departmental increase in funds was CPD.
Okay.
right? So there's an uphill battle that we're already in of saying we know that there's going to be fiscal progressive revenue wherever it may be coming from to be able to fund these as well. But I want, as a taxpayer in the city, for every dollar that I spend on public safety to be invested on my streets to make them safer. So that's kind of like the core of it.
Right,
Yeah.
and this leads me back to the whole fuzzy issue of budgets and things like that, where it's like, okay, well, if one department gets a haircut, that doesn't mean it's going to the department that you want. If everybody gets a haircut, there's a better chance of that money getting diverted to where you want. That's where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I've got a lot of experience, especially governmental budget.
Yeah. I haven't necessarily seen that in practice over the last few years, but what I do know is that you guys are in a position of power. And we know that the folks that are in positions of power are able to drive pressure on where funds get allocated based on the community that's supporting it, right? Like otherwise this wouldn't be a democracy, right? So what we want to say is we want to build as much people power to say we want our funds to go towards these services. Ideally, if we are in a functional democracy, our leaders are listening to that and saying, okay, cool, if you guys are saying this, then we want to do that. So I agree, it's a fight, it's a battle, and hopefully all of us can work together to getting these investments in the ways that we need.
If people, police officers fulfilling roles that they're not trained in, they don't have expertise in, and they don't want to be doing, that there is that, lawsuits that are brought in cases where there was harm done, or that the people didn't get the help they needed. And so in that way, there would be, if there was the help in the, with people trained in, that specialize in those roles, then again, that would be something that would be a savings as well as actually getting the services that they needed.
Yeah, entirely. I appreciate that. Yeah, please.
If people are calling 911 for the kind of help they need.
So the call dispatch actually happens out of OEMC.
Right.
Sorry, I saw a hand there.
Well,
Oh yeah.
Well, no, as a matter of fact, there, and not to take away, your
Please.
stage, there actually is a number prescribed directly for mental health crises, and it's 811.
988.
988, that's it.
See, even you guys.
Care that you want, right? And two, there should be the proper triage process that's happening when a dispatcher is answering saying, okay, this feels like this does not require someone with a badge and a gun. Let's send a non-police crisis response because we know that these people are not going to be at risk. We know the type of care that they need is more akin to the expertise that this other team has, and they can get them the long-term resources that they need as well as the interventive resources that they need. So we're fighting kind of on both fronts of how do we make it such that people don't need to memorize 40 different numbers to call. They can actually just call one number and they're properly dispatched. And then also, how do we have another number that people can call and know that they will be getting a non-police crisis response and access to the resources that they need, where they're kind of hundreds of calls every day that folks can see across, if I have my notebook, I have it written down, but there's 5 different call types that happen within OEMC. OEMC has this data publicly available. But just a fraction of them right now are actually being brought into the care teams for a few reasons. One is, it's Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in 6 districts. Number 2 is because of the way that call triage is happening from police and then fire, there is actually no specialist triage that's happening for care, right? So there's no CDPH. Substance use, care teams are not able to respond to them. If there is any suicide ideation, care teams are not able to answer them, right? So the question that you're asking right now around triage is, it's not just can we have these care teams present, but can we actually have them integrated in as a true crisis response, not just to be able to say it exists, but to be able to see that it exists.
My issue of real life experience of trying to assess in an emergency situation, like me trying to decide what would be the best avenue in which to address, like what number to call.
Yeah.
What agency? Like if I'm at the CTA, and this happened very recently, if I'm I'm on the platform, am I trying to reach CTA? Am I trying to reach 911? But it was causing a problem with some other passengers. So I tried my best.
I appreciate that. And yeah, you should be able to call one number and get the care that you need, right? Like that's the goal that we're building. Like that's like this project. That's like this big project of public safety. And there really is not an excuse for the situation that you were in, right? Like there should have been a response to that call that got that person there. Downtown, this unfortunately wasn't widely reported on, but it was de-escalated by non-police crisis response, right? Like that was what de-escalated the teen trend. Another one has been de-escalated by young people and peacekeepers, right? Like these are the realities of the situations of what actually de-escalate these situations while making sure that this is a city that's welcoming to young people, right? So all of these are interconnected, but ultimately getting back to the idea of we can't keep on coming back to the same things that we've been trying for the last 40 years, that we've seen the challenges. 200 million is kind of like the baseline based on like what current exists. That's one public mental health center and I want to be clear on this, one public mental health center, publicly funded and publicly operated.
And 24/7.
And 24/7 care teams, one care team across 2 districts, right? That's kind of how it works.
Probably to an exact. There were also the other programs in the proposal. So the current proposal is only to fund CARES for half that amount, 100 million, but also to put 100 million into these other parts of the program, violence prevention, intervention, youth programming.
And the idea is that this is kind of the down payment on us being able to actually fully fund this across the city.
Is there an idea, a conceit about what is the amount of funding on these alternatives that would fully capture, eliminate the need for that 40% all of those problems, like essentially to compare the return on investment from CPD to these alternatives?
Totally. Yeah, I can tell you what the examples of other cities are, right? I want to root a lot of what we're talking about in evidence of other cities. In Denver, I was just pulling the research report up. In Denver, 48% of welfare checks, trespassing, and unwanted persons was responded by a non-police crisis response team. In the first 6 months, the STAR program, which is the Denver program, reduced low-level crimes by 34% and prevented 1,400 criminal offenses. Right? Think about not just the cost savings in that moment. Right? This is Denver. Obviously not the same size as Chicago by any means, and not saying that is the exact analog, but it is a piece of data that we can use as we think about how do we refine what our programming is. One other quick example, in Cahoots in Eugene, Oregon, they responded to it. What we're trying to get at is this is an evidence-based solution, this is a fiscally responsible solution, and what it does is it gets people the care and the resources they need to decrease ongoing crises that will happen in our communities. Please.
So we're talking a lot about accountability and getting people the care that they need.
That's what bringing people into this is, right? When I think about how do you keep an entity accountable, there's a set of metrics that you want to have through a publicly available dashboard on, are they meeting these metrics? What are the outcomes that we're seeing from every call? What is the repeat calls that are happening? There is are we getting them the resources that they need, which is outcomes? What is the number of calls that they're responding to? And then there's a hiring view. One of the reasons why we are having $100 million as what the demand is this year is because we want to be realistic that it is very challenging to hire that many people in a year, right? We're not saying let's just hire, across the entire city. We're saying let's start with half. Let's really make sure that we got it, and let's extend to the other half. So that's what we're saying on how we think about this. We want to be pragmatic, we want to be realistic, and we want to do this in a way that is iterative. So where they are, there's an accountability board that is engaging with these teams. There's a few different iterations of what accountability can mean, but I think when I think about accountability, I think about data access and data visibility. What are the metrics? I think about who are the actual humans that can engage and do community outreach and engagement, so that way people know about it and can give comment. And these are things that are accountable to people. So those are kind of like the 3 lanes of accountability when I think about this program. But you know, there's a lot of smart people that live in the city of Chicago that can be a part of this process too.
Well, thank you, Mr. Daya. If you've got time to stick around, we'll save any more Q&As until after we adjourn, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Just
Yeah.
Get some more housekeeping done here. Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
Here to do a digital presentation. Staff did actually print. I was only expecting maybe one of these, but I actually have printed copies. I'm just going to pass out a couple things to everybody here. The feedback, we can send them feedback up to July 7th, but what this says is that the online feedback for you to self-submit is only up to June 27th. So that's, the workforce allocation study in general is to get a sense of how is CPD using their own resources, where are officer resources going?
Is this for the whole city of CPD, or is this like just for this district? Like, what is
This is citywide?
citywide? Okay.
I'm gonna give it to everybody, sorry. You can say anything about it.
Well, I think to be a little bit more clear on your question there, it's rooted down to the districts as well. So basically, this is a workforce allocation citywide, but they sit there and they pivot all the way down to the district level. So, in other words, in short, the feedback.
Their goals for community policing.
Okay.
So this is part of the workforce allocation study that's
All
ongoing.
right, let me check this out.
Okay.
My credentials, I work City Hall on the Harold Washington administration.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I've had control of the streets out here through the Department of Human Resources. Okay, and the gunshots, we've closed the gunshots down. This is my second time around on this. Right now, that's 40 or 50 years. I'm kind of just rejuvenating my body, eyes, ears, nose, throat, as a veteran. But I wanted to see what this was all about, okay, to see what the foundation is and where the business is headed for mental health,
Sure, yeah.
and the stuff here. I put my business here, so if I'm looked for, you can find me.
Okay, excellent. Did you want me to share that also with the speaker from today?
Yeah, anybody, I'm available. Okay, I've had all the persons around here, Louis, the ones who have retired. I have not personally connected to the alderman here right now, but down the street, the retired alderman for the 31st Ward, Raymond Figueroa, he has a pub here. I am in direct contact with Chewy, okay, these are people that I work City Hall with. And there is a connection like that, and I wanted to see what was coming this way for the change that is needed to be taken care of. The police department, I have people that I have as kids out here to work this district and the 5th district, and it's gotten to a point where they have retired, so I don't really know the new officers there. I know the ones that are getting ready to retire. Same for CPS, I worked all this neighborhood for all the elementary schools. I had direct, hands-on with the different, what they call it, neighborhood organizations, classified as gangbangers, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's what I spend my time doing here.
Excellent. My name is David. Nice to meet you,
Okay,
sir.
Wallace McMillan is my name.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
You also talked, one thing you said was about meeting the police. We had said earlier, there's a new commander for the 14th district. We don't know when yet, but we're gonna hope to have them to a public meeting so that people can.
Okay, but what I'll do is, since I sit the corner there, Milwaukee,
Oh, okay.
okay, California,
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah, I'm usually in the post office taking care of my business as a professional musician. I always have communication from here in New York and Europe all the time.
Wow,
So I spend a lot of time in the, right there on the corner to keep the violence down.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And if you're positively in the neighborhood, contributing to things that you should, then I know who you are. If you're not, you don't need to be there. Okay? I will stop by the district and talk to Officer Martinez, one of the last persons in there. Good friend of mine for you.
Thank you for all your work on the streets. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Nice meeting you,
Okay,
sir.
and I will see all you people again.
But I did want to make certain everybody was aware. As I mentioned, Commander Rivera is our new commander. Replaced Lieutenant Courtney, who is our interim commander. I have reached out to the new commander, Rivera, in regards to setting up a time where the two of us can sit down and talk and come to some kind of level of working understanding to where we can start having a little bit more interaction. And I'm not talking about so much attendance as I am of getting at least some kind of like a input from CPD into these meetings. I think not opening that door or not creating that avenue is a disservice to each and every one of you, because we need to know what's on their mind and what they expect out of us as well. We're supposed to be working in partnership. We're the glue that holds it all together, the partnership and public safety together. And the community is definitely one of those partners that we look to work with. Anything else?
Are there any questions about the CPD survey? So one of the pages lists two of the questions, 7 and 8. And just one note on that, they list certain categories, but there's also the other write-in response, and I would encourage you also, to think of your own answers if you'd like, not to be limited. If you do want to write that out, I will take those responses, and our staff will be submitting them to CPD directly. If you'd prefer to write that out rather than to use the online survey.
So this is on the online survey?
Yeah, that is a portion of the online survey.
All right, with that being said, we can get a motion to adjourn.
Sorry. The CCPSA is having a meeting on the north side, the citywide body, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, that sits above us, that has more direct control and power over these public safety issues. They're having a meeting on the north side at Truman College at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, the 27th. So that's this Thursday at 6:30. You can also sign up for the Zoom, and you can also, you have to email them if you want to give a virtual public comment. If you go in person, you have to fill out just a card with your name on it. But 6:30 at Truman College on Thursday the 27th for the CCPSA commission meeting.
Is there a flyer for that over there?
No, sorry about that.
Are you on our mailing list?
I did email one of you.
I did not include you in an email I sent today, but I will send it to you when I get home. Thank you, Alex.
No, I mean, because we get the update, we get the emails from the city.
Yeah, I was here. I went to the Wicker Park last week when the meeting got changed. So I emailed one of you guys saying, "Hey, I was here, but the meeting was changed." So I would love to be on the mailing list. Yes.
Yes, I will do that, and I will send you I will send you the CCPSA. Thank you so much for coming.
All right. Next meeting? Our next meeting is July 5.
I don't have my phone.
That's going to be at 3030 West Fullerton, the Logan Square Public Library branch, at 1 p.m.
Yes.
All right. And as always, if there's ever any other engaged speakers that you'd like to introduce to us, we're all ears. We want to make certain that this is high value to everyone that attends. That being said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, time now is 2:32 p.m. and we are adjourned.
Let me try to set it to not delete. Let me try to do this correct.